This is the American Indians, Indigenous Peoples Truce. Justice for all. The most dangerous show on media anywhere. OCO and greetings. I'm Jay Winter Nightwolf, and this is the American Indian Indigenous Peoples Truce. Justice for all. The most dangerous show on radio. Hello, Sandra. How you doing?
Hi, Jay. Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, it is a pretty happy Wednesday after the courts found that cop guilty in Minnesota. And I'm so, you know what? I'm just going to say this. If they had let that man walk, there would have been a national race riot in this country.
For sure.
And there were a lot of white people saying, yeah, sacrifice him, because we don't want that.
Yeah. Well, even with the maximum sentence, I don't think it's enough. Maximum sentence, as I understand it, is 40 years. It's not enough.
No, it's not. But that's that justice system. When you go to court, the only people you found there being prosecuted are who? Just us. Okay. Well, let's get to the show tonight.
Yeah.
Leave no one behind. My guests are, where are they?
They're hanging out.
Yeah. Manuel Valenzuela, Robert Vivar, Cesar Lopez, Jan Rhuman, and my friend James Smith, along with my good brother for many years, Joel Siegel. How's everybody?
All right.
Very
good, Jay.
Good. Don't everybody speak at the same time.
Hey, guys. Welcome to the show. Good to see you.
You know, we had a broadcast last week, and it was talking about the United States deporting U.S. veterans. And the ones they were talking about are basically the guys that they took the oath to protect the U.S. Constitution. And the people of the United States, they took the oath and they volunteered and they joined the Marines, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force to defend this country. And when they came back, President Clinton had the nerve to do something, change the Immigration Act. And that put a lot of people in jeopardy. And then you had this fool that was in office before President Biden that brought racism back to America. I mean, it was already here, but it took it to another level. And the victims of that were a lot of our U.S. veterans that served and were discharged honorably. And that's why my brothers came to Washington this week to express how they felt about serving this country and then having this country to throw them away like you're throwing away trash. And I support these U.S. veterans. So let's start with Manuel Valenzuela. You guys came here this week, right? And what did you do when you got here this week? Can't hear you.
You're muted, Manny.
Unmute it, Manny. Okay.
We're live now?
Yeah, yep.
We were practicing lip reading.
No, you don't have any lips. That's not trying to read. Chicken lips, right? So anyway, man, you guys came here this week, and what did you come here to do?
Same old thing is fighting again. Like, I feel like I'm still back in the service, going through this ordeal. You know, it's taking a toll, but anyway, we made it here. Every day is a challenge. Mm-hmm. And yesterday, when we were at the Capitol doing the one scene, you know, one event, the police came over and right away asked for we had permit and all that stuff. So I've been here, Jay, for so long. You know me. I've been through this ordeal for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And it seems like our words are not being heard from the people. They're what we've been doing through all these years, what I've been doing, it feels like they still don't hear us. We need everybody to step up to a plate and stop this, because the politicians are really not doing nothing, really. And we need everybody to step up to a plate and say, our commander-in-chief's got to step up and do this. Stop this. You know, and you know the president of the United States, which is commander-in-chief of the military, he can pardon every veteran who got deported and every veteran's family that were deported. Did an executive order to stop this and bring them all back home, but he can pardon all of them
and their families.
And the family. And I haven't seen that since 2009. I've been marching all over the place, and it's pretty tough, but I see a lot of things happening. They ain't seen nothing yet. Mm-hmm. I got some events coming up that is going to really, I think something's going to happen big. And even if we didn't get that much attention, just one person walked up to the plate and gave us information that he's charged of the Marine Corps League out here in Washington, D.C. And he's interested in getting us involved with this. Mm-hmm. And then in September, I got another event. The other writers, they want to get involved. And it's going to be in September 11th. So
okay.
Things are going to happen.
All right. We'll hear from Gene Rudman. Gene, step up to the... Go ahead.
Yes. You asking me the same question, why we're here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is probably the 8th or 9th time that I've been here in the last 13 years that I've been working on this issue in support of these guys trying to get this injustice corrected. Mm-hmm. I was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam, and I thought that we were taught and we knew that we couldn't leave anybody behind, but we are, in fact, not just leaving them behind, we're throwing them away. Just like you say, discard, discarded, discharged, discarded. But first I want to say, Jay, thank you for having us back here. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience. And Joel, it's nice to meet you as well. Robert, good seeing you. I'm sorry, is it Sandra? Sandra, nice to see you. We came again to advocate for United States military veterans who are being deported. I'm part of Veterans for Peace National Deported Veterans Advocacy Project, which was established originally in 2013. But in 2008, we started banished veterans with an attorney out of San Diego by the name of Heather Boxeth. She explained the immigration system to me, and I was appalled. The way it functions and the way it doesn't function in reality. The law that changed in 1996 that you made mention of, Jay, was the Illegal Immigration Reform and Responsibility Act. It was drafted in the House under Newt Gingrich's tutorage, and in the Senate, it was approved under another Republican senator who ran the Senate. I forget his name. And then Bill Clinton signed it because he wanted to be tough on crime and tough on immigration. Unfortunately, the first veteran who appealed his deportation took his case all the way to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. He appealed because under 8 U.S. Code 1101 Alpha 22, which defines what a citizen and what a national of the United States is, it's clear what a citizen is. A citizen is someone who was born in the United States or naturalized. But a national had to be explained by the Ninth Circuit.
Right.
It says that it's a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. I thought that was, and so did that veteran, and so most veterans thought that meant veterans. Folks who put their right hand up in front of the flag, swore allegiance to this country to protect and defend, and they went to battle or they just trained for it. Even in times of peace, you never know in this country if we're going to go to war tomorrow or the next night. We've been in so darn many wars since we began this nation, and we continue today.
Okay. So let's go to Willie. I'm not Willie, but James.
Yes.
Give us your story.
What are you here for?
Well, actually, I'm here as a documentarian. I want to help them. I want to help the Veterans for Peace and the Deported Veterans Advocacy Project get the message out. I was fortunate enough to run into Jan back in 2013, and when I discovered this term "deported veteran" on a message board, and was trying to understand what that meant, being a veteran myself. And once I talked to Jan, and he introduced me to Fernando Cervantes, which was one of the first people to come be able to get his conviction overturned and return to the United States. I did an interview, and I guess you could call it a short documentary. It was for a magazine called Stories de la Frontera, and my story was on deported veterans. And I wound up getting a Emmy nomination for that particular piece, and it was a piece that Jan and the Veterans for Peace were able to take and use as they also went on lobbying here in Washington and with other organizations. So my role is in trying to help get the message out and to show, to illuminate some of the things that people don't see or haven't seen in the process.
Okay. Cesar.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm here in DC for the main purpose of trying to get in contact with President Biden. We have him on video. I spoke with him a couple of times on the campaign trail where he promised he would stop the deportation with an executive order, and pardons for those veterans that are eligible for it. They have to be convicted of a federal crime for them to be pardoned by the president. But that's just the beginning. And since he did promise us an executive order, now that he's president, Jesus Manuel Valenzuela and myself, we're trying to reach him and confront him on that, because we see this as a military issue. For me, when I got deported, I started following the chain of command, so to speak. You know, I tried to fix my issue with requesting masks up to the state level, which I went to the governor of New Mexico with the assistance of Manuel Valenzuela, Veterans for Peace chapter in Albuquerque. The president at the time was Charles Powell. They provided all the assistance that I asked from them, and it was enough to get me a pardon. But since I saw my issue, I dedicated the rest of my time to try to bring the rest of the veterans back. And the executive order was the plan of action that made the most sense for me, because I had already approached politicians for about 6 years prior to that to no result. They promised the world, but they never even deliver a napkin. So I kind of got rid of that idea of getting assistance from the legislative body of this country and requested masks to the highest order, which would be the commander-in-chief. We actually got him to say he was going to help us, and that's why we're here.
Absolutely. Now,
And we posted that video on the Nightwolf page, the video of you talking to President Biden. I think he was not president at the time, but it's a
Right.
video of you with Biden, and where he promised to do that. So we want people to share that video so we can make sure he doesn't forget it, and we hold him accountable for that.
Because it's very important. Las Vegas was a critical market for the election with the Latino vote, and I helped them. I joined the campaign. I did the rallies. I got the families, the Latino families, to vote for him. We did our part. Now he needs to do his. He needs to be a damn commander-in-chief and bring us home.
Absolutely. Now, before I go to Joel Siegel, I want to get a few words from Robert, but I want to read something that I got here. It says that in an issue of a military magazine, it says that it's an issue that affected at least hundreds of veterans, but the full extent is unknown because of a lack of record keeping, according to a report released last week by the Government Accountability Office, the GAO. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement not only doesn't adhere to the policy requiring a service record review before deporting these veterans, they also don't track how many of them are caught by federal agents or ultimately deported, according to that report. When ICE agents and officers learn they have encountered a potentially removable weapon, ICE policies require them to take additional steps to proceed with the case, according to that report. GAO found that ICE did not consistently follow its own policies involving veterans who were placed in removal proceedings from fiscal years 2013 to 2018. Many legal residents of the United States choose to serve in the military because it can earn them citizenship, though they don't always qualify or complete that process. After separation from the military, they could spend years still in the United States until something like a criminal conviction brings them to ICE's attention. At the request of the House of Veteran Affairs Committee, GAO sifted through two databases finding 250 veterans who had been subject to removal and 92 that had ultimately been deported. So, Robert, you are the son, you are the father or grandfather of a United States Marine, but you got deported. Tell us your story quickly. Unmute, you're muted, unmute.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, for the opportunity to be here and everybody else. I got deported 8 years ago after living in the U.S. legally since the age of 6. And basically what occurred to me, I ended up getting in trouble. I had a drug problem, and I pled guilty to a charge that I didn't commit in order to be sent to a drug rehab. And instead I was put in removal proceedings and deported. So that's how I ended up being deported, regardless that there is a policy that existed at the time where active duty service personnel, if they had any first degree family members, there would be a possibility of parole in place, so they would not be removed. And that, of course, did not matter, regardless that my son was serving active duty with the California Air National Guard, flying combat, or not combat, but reconnaissance missions in Iraq and Afghanistan, without any regard of the state of mind that would put him in, thinking of his father being sent to a country he was born in, but had never really known as his own country, and affecting his way of carrying out his duties, his mission. Fortunately, He's done an incredible job in service to the country. But regardless, the state of mind that a military service person is going to be subjected to, knowing that their loved one has been deported to a country that is kind of like a complete foreign land to them. We recently had the mom of an Army officer that was deported. Him serving active duty. He's an officer, and they didn't care. She still got deported. No criminal record.
Okay. So let me say something first to my good friend for over 30 years, Joel Siegel. Joel Siegel served one of the greatest congressmen that ever lived, John Conyers. And Joel was his legal, legislative, executive advisor. I can say a whole lot of things about Joel, but what I will say is Joel is my friend and my brother. And Joel has always been on the side of right. When 15 years ago, when the Progressive Democratic, the PDA, came here to Washington to meet, it was Joel Siegel that told me, you need to be there. So I went there. I had 9 Native American people with me that stayed at my house for the opening of the National Museum of American Indian. And we walked in, and there was this guy controlling the mic. And he looked at me, he said, you got 5 minutes. I said, the hell I don't. And then he got a little attitude with me, right? So I turned the table over. I said, I got as long as I want to speak because you're standing on the land that belonged to my people that we didn't give you. You stole it. So I had an opportunity to speak my mind that day. And before I left, they asked me, would you serve on the PDA? I said, yeah. No. So it shocked the hell out of Joel. He says, oh my God, we got an American Indian on the Progressive Democrats of America. Joel, you've heard the stories of these men. You've heard their hardships, and you know quite a bit about it. I'm going to ask you point blank. I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you work with these guys?
It just happened.
Okay.
Yes, I'll be working with them.
Absolutely.
First of all, you also said, now I'm going to say things that you may not want to hear, but I don't really give a damn. You also said that. When I was listening to, first of all, my father was a veteran of World War II, and my Mr. Conyers was a veteran. And I want to thank these patriots for, fighting for their fellow veterans. It was hard for me to listen because I had a lot of righteous indignation boiling up in me. And I remember when I worked for Conyers from 2000 to 2013, I worked on Veterans Affairs. I can't tell you how many times veterans would come into my office, sit down with me, and tell me how they were betrayed by this government. Veterans would say they didn't have access to veteran hospitals. They would drive from Dallas to some city in Texas. It would take them, hours to get there. And we say how pro-veteran we are. That's a lie. I remember I would take the veterans, I'd walk them over to the chair of the House Veteran Affairs Committee at that time. And quite frankly, he didn't care about them, and neither did his staff. I don't want to be a bummer, but what I learned how to do when I was in Congress was to get around the bureaucracy, build massive coalitions, and I was the lead staffer on the Affordable Care Act and global HIV/AIDS. What I want to do is say, first of all, don't give up, number one. Number two, I would like to help Jesus and Robert to help build a coalition that maybe no one has ever seen before. That's Progressive Democrats of America, African American, Native American, Latin, doesn't matter, every race, every background, and end this nightmare right now. You're right. Biden needs to issue the executive order. Mark Takano of California. There's the Repatriate Our Patriots Act. Are you all familiar with that bill?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why isn't it being fast tracked?
it doesn't cover everybody. Most of the bills that have been introduced in Congress, it doesn't bring all of us home. It's a patch for patting each other's on the back, but it doesn't bring all deported veterans back. Just so you guys know.
It says
Let him finish.
pre 9/11 non-citizen veterans. Well, what about post? And I don't understand how anyone would have the nerve to even write a bill like this. But yeah, I'm going to help you. The reason why you're going to get it passed is because Darth Vader Trump is gone. And the first Imperial Wizard of the KKK, I'm sorry, but I'm kind of honest like Jay. The first Imperial Wizard of the KKK and the head of the white nationalist movement, that what George Wallace could not achieve, the presidency, or David Duke, the former Imperial Wizard of the KKK, Trump did. And, building walls and, throwing people out of the country who were quote unquote, non-legal. It was not a crisis. It's not a crisis. It was never a crisis. It was about getting the white nationalist vote. So what I would like to pledge to you, and then I'm going to stop, is I am going to pro bono work with you. You'll have my number and my email. We're going to start tomorrow. I will help you get to where you need to get to, and we're going to pass whatever damn legislation we need to pass. I know this is a children's show. Sorry, I said that. No, I'm kidding. And do we have access to Biden? The answer is yes. But, I'm only doing this because of the people who should never have been deported in the first place. This is an embarrassment. This is immoral, and it's evil. That's it.
Yeah. Well, Joel, thank you so much, because those guys heard that. And if you don't do it, they're going to come looking for you, because I got your address.
Well, I think you've known me long enough. I only say yes when I'm going to do something, because I got about 4,000 people I'm trying to help who are paying me. But I am going to make the room, because this is just too important.
Jay, can I amplify a little bit on what Joe was saying? That's precisely part of the mural campaign, why it was put together. Number one, to remind Biden of his campaign promises and issue an executive order. However, we know an executive order is only a Band-Aid. We need legislation. And, it's not that difficult to fix this problem. The part of the reason why we're supporting HR 536, the New Way Forward Act, is because that particular piece of legislation, the way it sits, would bring home, I would estimate, anywhere between 50 to 60% of our deported veterans, if not more, because it does also call for giving immigration judges prosecutorial discretion, once again, which was taken out in the past. Right. However, what we like about this particular piece of legislation is that Congressman Chuy Garcia is very accessible. And in a press conference with him, we asked him to consider adding to HR 536 an amendment to 8 U.S.C. Code 1101 Alpha 22, which my great friend Jan Rhuman there was talking about. That's all it takes. An amendment to that piece of legislation. And we're not talking about something completely out of the blue. We look back on history ever since, the first war. Congress has always had the idea of providing expedited citizenship to non-citizen veterans during serving during a period of war, of combat.
It started back in World War One. They set up
World War One, and it went even further. During the Second World War, non-citizen veterans were being administered the oath of citizenship abroad. Many of our deported veterans applied for citizenship while active duty, but because of their deployment, were never given the opportunity to finalize their citizenship process. The ACLU recently won a case in Sama versus the Department of Defense, which calls for policy to be enacted. And this is something that existed prior to Trump, so that when a recruit begins basic training, by the time they begin basic training, they also begin their citizenship process. So by the time they finish basic training, they will have completed their citizenship process. They graduate basic training as a citizen. That is something that is established.
Okay. We're going to take a break now and come back. But while we're gone, I want you all to think about this. Do you know the Obamacare Act, healthcare for all? The man sitting right there, my good friend Joel Siegel, wrote that bill. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere because we got more to talk about. And thank you all for being a part of this. Don't go anywhere.
And we're back. Absent Jay for a second. So let me just say, give me 1 second, Joel. I just want to say, James, thank you very much for documenting this whole thing. And thank you all for remaining vigilant and for never giving up. And even on the home front, never leaving a man behind, continuing to bring all the men home. So thank you all for everything you're doing. And I just want to ask, yesterday in DC, you took the mural, is that right, into DC? I think I saw that on some of the videos. So did you get any feedback about that? Any comments about that from people? What were their thoughts?
We didn't have a great big crowd, to be honest with you, but it did stream live and it did get thousands and thousands of views. So our challenge has always been pushing the issue forward into the public sphere so that people become aware of it. When we started back in 2008 on this issue, there were only two things on the internet about deported vets. One was a Washington Post or Washington, whatever it is, newspaper article about deported vets. Mm-hmm. And another one was a website, a single page rudimentary website that a family put up for a veteran who was deported that they were leaving up. That was it. But here we are 13 years later. If you Google deported veterans, any combination of those words, U.S. military veterans deported or whatever, you're going to see thousands and thousands of postings going back for years and years and years. The beautiful thing about the last 4 or 5 years, and Robert knows this and Cesar does as well, and so does Manny, Congress is finally starting to bring some legislation to the light of day. But it's really flawed and it's really discriminatory. From my perspective, anybody who served in the military, from the moment they took the oath of enlistment, that change in 8 U.S. Code 1101 Alpha 22 would have made them, upon taking that oath, a U.S. national, which is a protected class. They may not be citizens, but we sure as hell shouldn't be deporting these boys and now it's women. We've got women being deported. In fact, the mural that went on the side of the family market at 400 Kennedy Street, Northwest Washington, D.C., has a picture of a woman who was deported. And another veteran who's sitting next to us here is Cesar, is on that mural as well. So,
so the good news,
to be quite honest with you, and now that Joel has indicated he would like to come on and help, I'm just so thrilled. I really, truly am. I never thought this would happen in my life, but I'm sure it's going to push it till I'm dead. So, Joel, thank you very much.
Yeah, and that is a great news. And the other great news, which some of you may or may not know, that Joel Siegel is a badass bass player.
That's what I heard.
He is a badass bass player. So, Joel, go ahead. You wanted to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to put my number and email in the chat. So please call me tomorrow. What I want to say is, I had a law professor who was very progressive, which was rare where I went to law school. And he used to say, Joel, you throw a pebble in the water and it ripples.
Yeah.
Well, you have thrown a gigantic pebble in the water and it's not going to be a ripple. It's going to be a wave. And what I was hoping was two things. Number one, whatever bill that you would like to have introduced, I can assure you without any problem, I will be able to get that bill introduced, but only if there's a lot of support behind, the bill. So in other words, if you write the bill, then send it to me, and I'll make some changes. That's number one. Number two, we need a letter that goes from the Progressive Caucus to Pelosi, then maybe Pelosi to the president, asking him for an immediate, executive order. So this is what we can talk about, tomorrow.
I unfortunately will be on an airplane at 7 a.m. heading back to San Diego.
We can do it later.
My associates here can certainly represent us adequately. And again,
Okay.
Joel, thank you so much. I met you in 2009 at John Conyers' office.
I remember meeting you.
Yeah.
I remember when I met you.
Wow,
Yeah.
nice, nice. So I think you guys was Maurice Martin still there with you guys?
He left the room for a bit.
Okay. I was just going to see if you wanted to add anything.
Well, one of the things Maurice wanted to add, and I'll add it for him since he walked away from the room, was one of the things that was accomplished here this time around in Washington, D.C., was although the movement's been building, it's been building as different organizations with different leadership working on the same issue. Now there's a coalition that's been finally starting to form and is working on this issue together in unison. So good things come out of this. The Mural Project brought those folks together, and we came here to assist these veterans and their families, immigration families, in trying to push legislation forward, but at the same time, continue to push the issue forward in front of the American people. So, again, thank you.
And Joe, I would like to add something else too. If we have the time when I'm here in Washington, D.C., I would love to show you American Exile, the movie documentary about my brother and I and all the deported veterans.
Okay.
I think it would waking you up to how great this John Valadez made this movie. So it's an hour long. So
You can see it.
and it's going to be out on the fall, but I got it in my phone, so we can go somewhere and see it. Be fine,
Okay. My honor.
Absolutely. Charles Tadoko Moore just sent me a message to let you all know that we need to push this bill. It's HR 4890. We need to push that bill.
We need to read the bill, man. I'm not going to push a bill that I don't know what it is.
Me too.
That has not been reintroduced. That was the Takano bill.
Right.
And that has not been reintroduced, and that leaves out a lot of our veterans.
It does. He does. Yeah. But they need to seriously, you know what? We talk about pushing that bill. Let's write this bill that we need to have passed and put it in the hands of Joel Siegel and watch what happens. When Joel Siegel gets involved in something, he's like Mercury with those wings on his shoes. And he makes
Play it like a bass.
A national town hall meeting with Progressive Democrats of America, sponsored by your organization. And I think it should be using Sandra and Jay, your brilliant genius when it comes to the actual hosting of it. I think we need to do a national town hall meeting. I'll invite Hill staffers and the so-called dignitaries, whatever that means. Y'all are the dignitaries to me. Let's educate too about the crisis and bring them work on that.
all right. All right.
So thank you for that, Joel. But let's add Leslie Farr to that. She's the genius behind this production.
That's implicit. I'm sorry. Implied. My bad.
Okay. Let's get back to business. Robert, what would you like to see done?
What I would like to see done is HR 536 to include an amendment to clarify 8 USC Code 1101 Alpha 22. That's what I would like to see done. And this way end the nightmare, the injustice of deporting veterans and bring them home.
Okay. So let's reintroduce this bill, but at the same time, between all of us and Joel Siegel, create the bill that would be ideal and would encompass everything that's important.
It's the one that creates the board.
Yeah. Okay.
Jay, I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that bill. It creates another another step, another system that we have to jump through to get our citizenship, and I don't agree with that. I don't think that we have to go up with a board of military officers and other members of the community to bring this issue forth. I think it's very straightforward. The president of France granted citizenship to an immigrant that saved a child. So I see our circumstances similar. We are willing to give our lives for the country, and we're patriots. That's it, man.
I know that. But that's why we're here together now, because we have to create what we need. Okay?
Right.
But
a better choice is to create a bill like you guys suggested rather than try to resurrect old bills.
Cesar, you staying in my house, I know how to find you. Be quiet.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I see Manny laughing. But guys, really, the most important thing about all of this is to have a path for all of our veterans, deported veterans, a path to U.S. citizenship. Because all that stuff they did to you guys is bogus. And it's all about politics and it's all about money. We know that. So we need to do what we need to do, along with the help of this brain, my brother over here, Joel Siegel, and just get it done. You know, my father used to always say, don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, he said starting tomorrow that he's going to start working with you guys, and to get Joel Siegel to say pro bono.
Get his number and email.
Yeah, I got all of that. He's my 30-year friend. And a conversation that we had, and he's going to remember this, Joel. Remember when we first met? And there was a lot of issues, and there's still a lot of issues with civil rights. And I had to tell Joel, I said, Joel, your people are from Israel. You come from tribal people. My people are tribal people. And just about everybody in this country comes from a tribe from somewhere. If we start acting like tribal people and start listening to each other and talking to each other instead of talking at each other, we'll get something done. I'm on board, Joel's on board, and I know all of you guys are on board. And of course, Sandra and everybody else that I know are on board. So let's not talk about it. Let's be about it. Let's get it done.
Excuse me.
Saving the circle, Jay. Saving the circle.
And you know what? If you can't walk the walk, get the hell out the program.
Yep. Yeah. If I could ask Joel one question, and I don't know if we asked it when I met you in 2009 with our attorney and a family member of a veteran who was facing deportation and one that was in deportation proceedings, but why do bills have to be so roundabout with 10, 15, 20 pages? Our attorney drafted the amendment to 8 U.S. Code 1101 Alpha 22 to add category that would make them nationals upon taking the oath of enlistment. Yeah, and we didn't care about whether or not they had received other than honorable or an honorable discharge, because we knew as veterans, we know that combat veterans come home all the time and misbehave before they get out of the military. We run afoul of the military justice system and are pardon me, I almost said that, and then are pushed out of the military with less than honorable discharge, and then they don't get their health care benefits. They're penalized for life for things that I came back with post-traumatic stress disorder. They didn't recognize it. It took until 1982 to put that on the books. And I came back in 68. So, and the other thing about this is that I've met just a few guys from the Air Force and the Navy. They all come from the combat arms, the Army and the Marine Corps, 102nd Airborne, 82nd, you name it. So to me, there's a nexus there. There's got to be a nexus between their service. So is there some logic to why these bills have to be so long and can't be just concise?
It's called politics.
There's I hear a bit of an echo. I guess Jay, the NSC is recording you again, or the CIA, one or two, because you are big names.
I don't give a
I remember when we passed the Affordable Care Act, Mr. Conyer said, I have to give a speech on this tomorrow. So it was 1,000 pages long, and I'm like, I'm a lawyer, and I'm like, what in the world does this bill mean? And what happens is when you write a bill, they send it to the lawyers, and that work in the Congress called Legislative Counsel, and that's the problem. And I used to tell them, leave my bill the way it is, keep it short. If you can get a staff or a member that says, look, we want to keep it short, you can write a bill that's 3 to 5 pages. HR 676 that I wrote was 26 pages. So that's the problem, is when it goes to Legislative Counsel, but it can be written concisely.
Okay, we only got 6 or 7 minutes left. So let me start with everybody. Closing thoughts, 1 minute. Let's start with you, Manny. What's your closing thoughts?
Well, I'm here for the long run. So I'd sure like to get with you, Joe, and support all this, get it together.
Okay. Right. Cesar?
With me, it's very simple. I don't have any confidence in Congress or Senate. They have been introducing bills for 22 years trying to bring deported veterans back. It has never gotten more than 77 votes. So the first thing will be the executive order, and then a simple bill that will be addressed directly to this issue in a military way. Like Jan says, probably amending the code would be a one-page bill drafted by a legislator. So the main thing for me would be executive order to lead the way and tell Congress, look, man, you guys have tossed the can for 22 years. Write something simple. It's a military issue that can be translated into immigration. It can be a piece that both the Democrats and the Republicans can work on for a more comprehensive bill in immigration. But first of all, it's a military issue, and that's the way it should be dealt with.
Cesar, your time is up. Jan, 1 minute.
Yeah, for me, from day one, it was always about leave no one behind as a Marine and Semper Fi. We're always faithful. The other thing is it was never about an immigration issue to me. It was always a veterans issue. The disrespect that these men and women have received at the hands of our Congress and our presidents over the last 26 years or 25 years is appalling. In fact, it's a national disgrace. So I would like to see Joel do what he does. And I know with his good guidance in his hands that this will come about. I have no doubt.
Thank you, Jan. James, can you move? We need to see your face.
All right, then, brother. Basically, to keep it simple, let's right or wrong and bring home every vet. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's go to Robert Vivar. I can't see them. There you go. Robert, you got a minute. Your closing thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. I like to keep it simple myself, and I agree with Joel. This is about building a coalition powerful enough to make sure that Congress does the right thing. Right now, the Leave No One Behind mural project has built a very extensive coalition in support of 536. Congressman Garcia was open to adding 8 USC Code 1101 Alpha 22. To me, that's a good start in continuing to build that coalition to gain the support needed to amend a USC code with clear indications to make those that have served or that are going to serve nationals and not citizens from day they finish their basic training.
Robert, thank you so much. Joel Siegel, your closing thoughts. 1 minute.
Slam dunk on the Congress and on Joe Biden. We're not going to lose. Keep the faith. Mr. Conyers, one of the greatest members of Congress in the history of the Congress, taught me how to pass bills. And we passed together a lot of them. And we're going to pass this bill and get an executive order done. But we're going to need that big coalition that was just talked about. But let's get her done, man.
Yes,
I'm
indeed.
ready.
Thank
Get
you.
her done.
Yeah.
Get done.
Sandra, do you have anything to say quickly?
Just want to say thank you. Again, thank you for all that you're all doing. And I want to thank our audience, the people who are donating to the GoFundMes, one of which is Manny's GoFundMe for his RV of Justice, which is the RV that Manny drives all over the country trying to fight this fight to stop the deportation of vets. So I want to thank all of you for your donations to that and to the mural project, to all of those. Together we can fight this.
Okay. My closing thoughts are a grave injustice has been dealt to United States veterans that may not have necessarily been born here in the continental United States. But damn it, if you have the guts to raise your hand and take that oath and go and fight whatever enemy there is to protect this country, you have the right to citizenship. And you know, when you go to vote, the next time you vote, you need to make an issue with the person that you're voting for. If you refuse to support a bill that will bring our deported veterans back home, damn it, you're not going to get my vote. And see, that's the only thing they listen to. They want to vote. They want to vote. And a lot of them that are sitting in Congress on their laurels, they're collecting a big paycheck and they're doing a damn thing to help anybody. So it's time for a change. The other thing I want to comment on tonight is this police officer in Minnesota. The man knew he was wrong. And in my eyesight and in my vision, it was only this white man killing a black man and warning that community that if you step out of line, we'll do the same thing to you. This has got to stop. This is totally unnecessary. How dare you take somebody's life? My father always told me, except for when I was in the service, that if you can't give a life back, you can't take a life. So we need to all think about that, because George Floyd's death was totally unnecessary. Breonna Taylor's death in her house, in her bed, by a cop, totally unnecessary. Dante White, I think that's his name, the 20-year-old young man that was shot in Brooklyn Center, Michigan, that was totally unnecessary. And this little teenage girl, of course she had a knife. Why did you have to shoot her 4 times? You could have shot her in her leg or something and that would have stopped her. You know, so what is it? These white cops, are they Klansmen? Do they support Antifa? Do they, you know, are they Trump supporters? And it's all about making peace. Police should be in a community working with the people that live there, getting to know the people. When I was a kid, we knew every police officer in our district. And we knew them by officer wigs, officer this, officer that. And they knew our parents. And you know what? We had a good relationship with the police officers, because I remember one time my brother and I got it wrong, and Officer Wiggs grabbed us by our hands and marched us home to my father. I would have rather had them hit me that nightstick than what my dad did to us. So how about let's getting back to being human again and treating each other like human beings. No human is any better than another human. And I don't give a damn where you come from or what color you are. You are all members of the human family. Let's start treating each other like brothers and sisters. I'll talk to you all again, and I'll say to you in the words of my Cherokee people, Danada, Goai, Wado, and I'm very happy to have been here tonight to help facilitate this along with Sandra Hope. This conversation has been needed for a long time, and this conversation will continue. I'm going to work with Joel Siegel. We need to do a national town hall meeting or 2 or 3 to bring attention to this so that we can stop this mess. Talk to you soon. Thank you. Oh, one more thing.
Part 2.
No, that's one. One more thing. There will be another hour after this hour with another broadcast. Don't go anywhere. And I'm sure you're going to find this one interesting too. So again, Danada, Goai, Wado. Thank you, Leslie Fry. Hey, welcome back. Hey, Sandy.
Hi, Jay. Long time no see.
Yeah, what a difference 30 seconds make. What did you think of what we just did with these brothers?
Well, every time that's not the first time we've had that broadcast, but it just never fails to impress upon me that there's so many people who don't know that this is happening. And I know there are many, many people who are behind them who want to stop the deportation of U.S. military veterans that want to join in the fight, but they just don't know about it. I wasn't aware of it until you introduced me to Manny and he talked about it. And it's one of those things you just don't believe it's really happening, but it is. And we need to keep making noise about it.
Absolutely. So now we got another broadcast tonight with who are the guests?
All right. So let me first say the topics. We're going to talk about the Global Decolonization Initiative. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about the Zen Education Project, and we're going to talk about the TAINO collaboration, who has a project called Rethinking Columbus.
There you go.
Rethinking Columbus. Now, that's hot. That's hot. So
why don't you introduce them?
Well, let me see if I have all of their names. Why don't we, Leslie, can you just start bringing them in? Awesome. There's Naniki, there's Tanya, and we've got also Verona.
Verona Iriarte, Tanya Rodriguez, and Naniki Reyes
Ocasio.
Yeah. Hey, how you ladies doing today? Or should I say, how are my sisters doing? Don't everybody speak up at the same time. Unmute. Everybody unmute.
Good. We're good.
Very good. Good to see you.
Verona.
Hi. Hi, everyone. It's good to be here.
Hey,
Hey, everyone. It's good to be here.
Okay. Well, I'm going to leave you all in the hands of Sandra Hope. I've got to go out and cut the alarm off on my car, so don't go away. Sandra, introduce yourself, and I'll be back as soon as I go there and try to figure out what's wrong with my car alarm. Okay.
Don't let somebody take my truck out there, Jay. All right, so Naniki, Verona, Tanya, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I know this was a little bit last minute for you guys, so we really appreciate you being here. So first, I believe Tanya Rodriguez, you are involved with the Global Decolonization Initiative. So can you kind of summarize what that's about?
Thank you very much, Sandra. Global Decolonization Initiative is a group that we have on Facebook. We started in 2018, in September 2018. We wanted to bring awareness to the issues that were happening on a global scale to Indigenous peoples, and bring in conscious awareness of the decimation that colonialism is having on different Indigenous communities globally and nationally here, and how those intersect through colonialism. When we first started the groups was blurring the lines of social justice and decolonization. And so we really restructured the group last year, and I have been restructuring it for more than a few months to be in alignment with the true sense of what decolonization actually is, which is the repatriation of land, rematriation of tradition, and sovereignty to Indigenous peoples, and control of the processes and resources and narratives to Indigenous peoples of the land, and really making that distinction of what's decolonization and what's social justice. And a lot of people have been using decolonization as a buzzword. And so I wrote Decolonization, a guidebook for settlers, to give guidance of what decolonization is not, based on Eve and Yang's fabulous article called Decolonization is Not a Metaphor. And when people decolonize anything that they want, I just recently wrote another article called Uncolonizing Decolonization. And in Uncolonizing Decolonization, it shows, it's kind of a funny article actually on Medium. It shows how out of control decolonization is starting to become when it is blurred lines with social justice, and how anybody can use it, and it actually waters down the decolonization efforts of Indigenous peoples who are of the land. And so it's actually anti-Indigenous when people use decolonization as a metaphor. So I bring awareness to that. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So have you heard of, there's a book written by Edgar Villanueva called Decolonizing Wealth. Have you heard of that? So you should maybe check that out, Decolonizing Wealth, Edgar Villanueva. Edgar is he's a Lumbee native, and he works for, I don't know, lots and lots of zeros behind the dollars foundations. So he distributes wealth for these huge foundations, and he is teaching them to send that funding and that money out correctly. So it's called Decolonizing Wealth. So I think in that case, that's one of those things that is appropriately being presented. So thank you for helping to clear that up, because I know a lot of people will say something like I've said myself, there's no way for us in this world to completely, or in Turtle Island, there's no way for us to completely decolonize, because we're all in this soup together. But we can decolonize our mind. We can decolonize the way we go about things. So I assume that's what you're kind of helping people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely not. Decolonization used as a metaphor actually waters down the actual efforts. Decolonization is what's happening with DAPL and protecting the sacred of the land. Decolonizing wealth is you can't decolonize wealth because wealth is colonial. It's not an indigenous value. Indigenous values aren't based in wealth or greed or money allocation or anything like that. It's based in trade and honoring the land and honoring the sacred. Wealth is greed. And even if something is, let's reallocate wealth to these demographics, it's still colonial because it's still based in a supremacy mindset. And control over who gets money and who determines who gets what money. And that's not decolonial at all. It's pure colonialism. So his use of the term decolonizing wealth actually is anti-indigenous and goes against actual indigenous efforts of decolonizing and protecting indigenous land. Which is, it's an issue because it's become a buzzword that this person has now capitalized on, and it's under the veil of doing good, but really at the end of the day, it's still going against the actual term of what decolonization is. I agree with you. We cannot decolonize here fully, which is why I developed the word uncolonized. Somebody else came up with it, and I ran with it. And uncolonize anybody can do, but to decolonize, that's a brutal and vicious process. People die, cities burn, and to make it a contrite thing is really offensive. So that's just
and I assure you that was not his intent. So maybe if you read the book, you'll I'm not describing it correctly, but so let's hold that thought for just a minute, Tanya. So let's go to you, Naniki. Tell us what your passion is right now and what you're involved in.
My passion has always been decolonization. My passion has always been the elimination of making our people, the Taino people, invisible. My passion has always been changing that narrative, letting folks know that we are here, we've been here, we haven't gone anywhere. And my passion has been basic human rights, the restoration thereof, and the fight for that, and yes, my focus has been Taino people, but my focus has also been in a broader sense of basic human rights of all living things, including things that perhaps others won't include in having basic human rights.
Okay, and where are you coming to us from, Naniki? Where are you visiting us from?
I'm actually live in Puerto Rico, Boriquen,
okay.
But I'm now in California. I got stuck here after COVID started. I was visiting my grandbabies and my great-grands, but happily, I'm on my way back home on Sunday.
Okay, awesome. And Tanya, I'm sorry, where are you visiting us from?
Unmute.
I'm on Cherokee land in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You're not too far.
By the Eastern Band Cherokees.
Yep, just right there.
That's where my folks are from. Well, one part of my folks, I'm also Shoshone and TAINO.
Awesome. Yeah, I am originally from North Carolina as well.
Verona, did you have a chance to speak, Verona?
I did not.
Okay, you're up.
Well, all three of us have been collaborating on a document that ZenEd Project put out that put Tainos in a negative light. So we've been working on it to bring Taino to the center and make us give us our voice back. That's what we want to do.
So you all are working with Bill Bigelow, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Bill is a friend of mine, so I don't think he wants me to call him on this issue. And all of you went to the grandmothers, right? Tell us about the grandmothers.
The grandmothers, that's Bohio Atabe. I'm actually not totally into grandmother. Yeah, actually, they're going to do a special ceremony for me in a couple of months. So, Nani, you can take that one.
It's actually a women's group where we do pass on teachings, but we also take on issues that are important to our people. And so we intervene as we have done. Of course, Tanya took that initiative and went with it. We intervene in issues like this where we see our people misrepresented or invisibilized or in any way affected by others. And so that's part of what the Boyo does, as well as pass on the knowledge to younger women and girls.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All of you know me, and you all know that I've always been a great supporter of women and women's issues. And as guys ask me, why are you so big for women? I said, because before the European invaded us, always in charge. They made all of the decisions. But because this European didn't like talking to women that had power, they put men in charge. And I remember what they told them. You will do the will of the people. If not, we're going to take your butt out that seat and replace you with somebody else. Hey to women.
Wow, yeah. The colonialism has done a lot of damage to a lot of original teachings and systems, and look at what's happening now. It took a year of uprising and protests and uprisings globally, so that for the first time in Minnesota's history, a policeman can be sent to jail for murder. And so, the colonial empire has had a grip for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And as we know, white supremacy controls the processes and narratives and resources. So what we're doing with the Zen education process is we're reclaiming our narrative. Reclaiming it, yeah.
I had an opportunity in my life about 30 years ago to travel to Mallorca off the coast of Spain. And when I was there, I was very interested in the place that Columbus was born. But I asked people there, a lot of people, I said, what about Columbus? They said, who's that? I said, Cristobal Colombo. Oh, that one? I said, yeah. Well, we don't claim him. I said, why? Because he claimed that he was Italian. He said he wasn't Italian. His mother and father were Jews. Not that I have a problem with Jews. They said the only reason he was considered an Italian because he sailed under the Italian and the Spanish flag. So I found that to be quite educational. I didn't know that. So what about, let me ask you, Tanya, what about this myth, this lie, that Italians have been living under for all of these centuries since 1490s? Your thoughts?
The pardon has been living under?
The Italians, stating that Columbus was Italian.
Well, I think that came in when there was the massive migration from Europe. And so in order to have a connection with this country, Christopher Columbus was made to be, basically a saint or a representative. And there was a depth of propaganda that happened to connect Italians to this land. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't about Columbus until the migration, Great Migration for the Italian demographic came in. And that's when that narrative also accompanied.
Right. But I never saw a picture of him with somebody painted a halo over his head. The man was a mass murderer, a rapist, a slave trader. No kind of way. Now, Nikki, what's your comment on it?
He's also a pedophile.
Mhm.
And that's what actually started, there's a whole story about how our chiefs got together because they had kidnapped little girls and boys and brought them into this fort that they had built before Columbus left and raped them for days on end. And of course, the chiefs got together and there was not one of them standing when they got through with them. But the sad part about that, we have what we call the sleeping medicine, right? Those children was so traumatized and so their lives were just unbearable after that experience because that's nothing, that they experienced, in their villages. And they opted to take that because they just couldn't live with those memories of what these, I don't even know what to call them at this point, these atrocities that were committed to them, by these people.
And there was no slavery in America until Columbus showed up. And when he went back, he had kidnapped and taken native people back to Italy and had the deacons in the villages to sell these people into slavery. There was no slavery here.
Yeah.
Even when Indian tribes fought each other, they may have taken a prisoner, but they didn't have slaves. Verona, you know about that.
Yeah, it's a long history of them enslaving Native people on this side, taking them back to Europe, because there are many that are in Canary Islands and Spain, Portugal, parts of Africa. They're indigenous from here that are there. And then they came here and took people from the main Turtle Island and took them to the Caribbean as well. So it's like we're all over the place as enslaved before they, really start taking other people.
Absolutely. Sandra, your thoughts?
Well, I was just going to ask the Zen education project that you're all involved in. How does that target specific institutions or age groups or any other specific groups, and how do you implement that?
Verona.
Okay, so Zen Ed Project is a major project that puts out lessons in this country and throughout the world. And so they cover all kinds of issues, and their lesson plans can focus from kindergarten to high school and sometimes college students too. But this particular lesson, like they'll put out a book, it's called Rethinking Columbus. So the lesson plan that we are revising is the one that I used in my class like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And what it did was it has a role play, and the role play placed Tainos as the victims and the perpetrators of their own crime. So we decided we had to get rid of that and rewrite the whole thing. And so that's the process that we're going through right now.
Okay, somebody tell me about Casa Bartholomew de la Casa. Verona, you know about that, right?
Yeah.
Nani.
One thing that we made sure of in our rewrite, because in the original writing where he presented us as defendants, actually, right, we had to defend ourselves against creating this whole thing towards ourselves. He placed Bartolomé de las Casas and Antonio, I forget his name now, two priests, as if they were saviors, as if, oh my God, if it hadn't been for them. And so we corrected that and let those young people know that, yes, they may have changed and began to speak out about these atrocities, but they themselves had engaged in it. And they themselves actually had slaves, and they themselves actually participated in the military raids to kidnap Taino people. So that's one of the points that they correct in terms of that narrative, right? Because everybody, thinks that Bartolomé de las Casas was this big hero, and not that he didn't speak out, not that he didn't speak out, but he actually participated. So people need to know that other side of the story as well.
Okay, Tanya?
And what's really important with this program is that we're correcting a narrative. We're correcting a narrative that's been based in erasure for a long time. There's a lot of people that walk this earth that still believe that Tainos went extinct. And Taino on the island of Borinquen have one of the highest rates of blood quantum. Unfortunately, blood quantum is one of those things, but it has the highest rates of blood quantum out of many native demographics across the world, because the island of Borinquen was largely protected in the beginning of initial colonization. And so when we bring in a correcting of these narratives that are based in erasure, that are supported with paper genocide, that are supported with a narrative that says, they don't exist anymore, but we do, and our ceremonies live in our grandmother's teachings, and we just don't call them ceremonies because people would die if we call them ceremonies. And so when we bring in these corrected narratives, then the next generation and the generation that's coming up has identity, and in identity there's power, because then people can begin to look to who they are of, where they are of, and make change for the people, for the next generations. And so so we're doing it for them and for our ancestors.
We always talk about our next 7 generations, and when we leave here, we must leave them with the truth to guide them into the next 7 generations behind them. What about, I know that in Cuba, there's a large population of Taino people. Am I right? Okay. Who want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's called Caridad. I don't know if it's called Caridad de los Indios. And I actually had the opportunity to go down in Cuba and have an encounter, or say, meet my family there. And it was amazing. It was emotional for both of us. And we shared a lot. It was in a conference, and we shared back and forth how they had sustained. They actually have a person, or a cacique, right, that kind of directs and helps to direct the village. And they also have councils. And so it was just incredible, to be able to meet them. Although Fidel hasn't, and he's crossed over now, but there's been some engagement, from my understanding, of having Cuba at some point recognize the fact that there is an indigenous population in Cuba. Yeah.
I have another comment to make. This idiot of a president, number 45, when you had all those storms on Borinquen, he had the nerve to go down there and throw paper towels at people. What are your thoughts on that? I'll start with you, Manuel.
He's lucky that I wasn't there, because he'd have got that flung back at him. And I don't know what else I might have done at that point, because when I saw that, I was just not only horrified, but I thought, how dare you? Who do you think you are to do that to a people that just encountered loss of lives, have no homes, and you're gonna just fling them, like clean up your own damn mess. I was like horrified by that experience and traumatized by it, as I'm sure others. And I think that when people did this catching thing, it was like, I think they were in a state of shock. You know, I really do believe that they may have been like in a state of shock over this gesture by this idiot at the.
Verona,
I didn't hear your question.
I said your thoughts on this idiot that threw paper towels at our people.
Well, you know, like Nani said, I would have, yeah, if it was me, you already know my personality. So,
Oh, yeah.
probably would have to drag me out of there. Right. But yeah, it was very disrespectful. Very disrespectful. And people on the island, they're making their way to recouping from Maria. That hurricane was horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
So
have the three of you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said, and now, the island is trying to get back. And now, recently, they had hearings on self-determination. All right. But they never want to mention whether we want to be independent or not.
Tanya, your thoughts. Here we go. Come on, Tanya, do it.
Wow. My thoughts on seeing that and how everybody.
Keep it clean, sis.
I will. You can feel my passion. I'm like,
I know you. You and Verona, I think you and Verona were born at the same time together. I don't know.
Viva Verona has been a beautiful light in my life to walk with in this way, and as well as Naniki and Bibi Naru. I'm grateful for all of them, and with that guy when he did that, you know, to me it showed two things. To me, it showed the vulnerability of our people to be put in a situation like that and not really have an option. And then also it showed that white supremacy is alive and well.
Yeah.
And, in that it didn't get as much airtime of the ignorance and the audacity, the caucasity that it took to do something like that. Just goes to show what level of colonialism was present and is still present on the island, and it gave me something to work towards in bringing awareness to, so it doesn't happen again. So we all stop catching it and just what are you doing? So
so have the three of you met in person?
Because of COVID, not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
But we are
this year. Nani and I have met each other.
Right.
Yeah, and I have not met in person.
Okay. So was it one of these events that you met? Was that what brought you together?
No.
No, it's the Bohio. It's the Bohio.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the women's circle. Bibi and Aru, when an activist brought this to me a couple of months ago with the Zen Education Project and said, this is happening at my son's school and I don't know what to do about it. And so I got the original role play, and so I brought it to the Bohio, and Viva Verona has taught it. And she's pretty much the only Taino that I know that has actually taught it and knows exactly what it looks like in a classroom. And Bibi Naniki's a historian of our people and knows exactly what was missing when the moment she read the role play. So this collaboration is important, and it's a deep honor to work with elders in this way and abuelas that know their stuff in a non-woo way, and it just very, this is what happened, this is what's going on, and this is how we're going to make a difference and change the narrative and correct it. So
Okay, let me say something, because earlier in the conversation, somebody mentioned how moved they were to join forces, the three of you, in reviving our people. One of the most moving things that ever happened to me was 10 years ago when Enaru, my cousin, we didn't know we were cousins until I called my grandma's name. Her name was Sylvia Robles Cruz. She was born in Old San Juan. And then Gina was there. And Gina says, "That name, are you sure?" I said, "I'm absolutely sure. I grew up under my grandmother." So Gina says, "She sounds like a relative, my mother's sister, that left the island when she was a young woman, and they never saw her again." So she did a little research, and then my cousin Vanessa, she says, "Wait a minute." And at that time, they did some researching and found out that my grandmother, Vanessa's grandmother, and Gina's grandmother were sisters, separated at a young age. And I said, "Oh my God." And I've been running around with Gina. She's my buddy for years. And then met Vanessa through my efforts on the radio show I used to have, and some other efforts here in the United States. And just to find out that my family, I finally found other members of my family that were actually from Puerto Rico. It was just the most emotional thing that happened to me in so many years. So, we're talking about good things happening. And, Creator made that happen because it was time for that. So I just wanted to share that with y'all, and I'm looking at you, Naniki. You look like my grandma Sylvia. She was always in the kitchen cooking. The pots were on the floor all the time, So I'm so honored to be here with all of you tonight, and allowing me to be a part of this conversation. Anybody want to say anything? And I got to thank Sandra because, she's also indigenous. Her people are from North Carolina. They're Saponis, yeah. So okay. And I got a message from somebody named Black Wolf. He says, "OCO, bro," from Pennsylvania.
From Pennsylvania.
Absolutely, So, and then I got all these messages from Charles Tadoka Moore, and he supports the veterans because he's retired U.S. Navy. But let me tell you who he is. Any of you know the history of the 39 Native men that they hung in Mankato, the Dakota men? Abraham Lincoln hung 39 of them.
38 plus 2, I think they call it now.
His great grandfather was one of those Lakota men that they hung. So, it's nothing new about what they do, but we need to be the ones to step up and change it. I used to hear a good friend of mine who was on a radio station here in Washington, D.C. God, I can't think of his name. And he would always say the answer to everything is to organize, because they can't stand dealing with us in numbers. They'll come at us one at a time or catch us when we're off guard and destroy us. But when you show up with numbers, and that's why I'm so proud that my African-American brothers and sisters, along with some of our white brothers and sisters and our Native brothers and sisters, they showed up for this trial for this fool that killed George Floyd. And that's, I'm just, you know, folks, we need to stop thinking about individualism and start thinking about all of us as a whole, a collective, the human family. And when we see somebody do something, somebody that we don't even have to know, and it's wrong, if we don't step up and defend them, then they'll be lost too. Okay.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, historically there was so much divisiveness. There was so much division that was intentionally caused because they knew there was strength in numbers. And if we were all busy fighting about whether or not we had the right blood quantum, or whether or not we had the right shade of skin, or whether or not we had federal or state recognition, we were all busy fighting about that. We couldn't come together and fight them. So that was intentional divisiveness. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the descendants of those periods have latched onto that and need to be retrained to let it go. And we need to come together.
And I have the definition of who is an Indian. Does anybody know who an Indian is? Chief Billy Tayak of the Piscataway Nation here in Maryland. I had him on my show one time. And the title of the show was, Who is an Indian? And at the end of the show, I asked him again. I said, Uncle Billy, who's an Indian? He says, well, Nightwolf, I'll tell you the truth. An Indian is one who carries the sacred ancient blood of the Western Hemisphere in his or her veins. He said, I don't care if it's got black in it, white in it, Chinese in it, or gray squirrel in it. If you carry the blood, then you are an Indian. Anybody want to comment on that? Don't everybody speak at the same time. Come on, Tanya.
I'm all like, one of the things that I have been really speaking out loud about, Elder Lobo, is,
You got excited. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm like, so I actually stopped using race because I look at it and I'm like, look, you know, either we can be led by colonial values or we can be led by indigenous values. And there's a lot of people that are led by colonial values that are of color. And it's like, how are we going to break through leading under this veil of unity when we don't even have an understanding of how deep all of us have been colonized? Yep. And so I open up and I kind of like, I just rip the veils off of the distraction of race, because as a community leader in the town that I live in, Rob Thomas says it's a race to supremacy. And when it's a race to supremacy, it's a distraction from dismantling the systems of oppression. And so I speak up and loud around collective liberation.
Yes.
Because when we can meet each other as a collective and look to collective liberation, not selective liberation, collective liberation,
yes,
where we can meet our oppressions and go, hey, I'm colonized, you're colonized, we're both oppressed. Let's dismantle the systems of oppression together. That's what they're afraid of. That level of unity is so powerful, nobody can mess with it. But it's so easy to stay in the distraction because the distraction is familiar. It's familiar chaos. And people love it. And then they sometimes, there's some people that require it because it's all they know. And so it's about breaking that spell and opening up the opportunity for people to see that, hey, yeah, it's okay to say, I'm colonized. It's okay to say that that training is racist. It's okay to say that. Okay, cool. Let's put that aside and let's join together from a space of collective liberation and tear down the systems of oppression together so it doesn't happen ever, ever, ever again to any generation going forward.
Now, Nikki, your thoughts. I could hear your thoughts. Go right ahead.
Tanya put it really in probably the best possible way, you know. And I think that the focus with the Zen project, and I remember your last comment on the show tonight, was becoming human, being human. And that's been the main focus of how we have approached and taken advantage of the fact that we're in this place that we can actually help to educate these young peoples to become more human. And so that's been, you know, like our focus. And so, you know, I loved your last comment, Tanya. You did a phenomenal job at the just now in expressing this whole colonization and how we have to decolonize our hearts, our minds, and spirits if we're ever going to conquer this monster of colonization, ¿verdad? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
humanity.
Yeah, Charles Tadoko Moore just sent me a message, and he says, indigenous values give us a true sense of self-worth. Our values as a people, it gives us a true sense of self-worth. Verona, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, but your time. Go right ahead.
Okay, so what's her name? Sonia Sanchez, who's a poet. She was like, whatever we do, how does it free us? So if we are working as a collective, trying to get rid of all those things that keep us from doing the things that really will make us free as people and as human beings to walk this earth the way that we're supposed to walk in light. Because I keep back here, it's like every step that you walk is a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you respect the earth and the people around you like that, that's where we can get on the road to trying to be free as human beings, you know.
Mm-hmm. You're right. You're absolutely right. And nobody can question that. The chiefs of old, those that are west of the Mississippi, like Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull and Red Cloud, whenever they met people that they'd never seen before, that people didn't look like them or dress like them or act like them, they automatically told them, welcome, because you are a member of the human family. You know, our people in the Western Hemisphere, we never divided each other. We never group of people over here and a group of people over there and a group of people over there. We all came together. And the most important thing is that we knew from birth that you talk to each other and not at each other. You ever notice how some people that are deceitful and fools, when they talk to you, they don't look at you, they look down. Like, what the hell is down there? You're talking to me, I'm here. You get what I'm saying? So don't talk at me because I'll dismiss your butt right away. But if you talk to me and look me in my eyes, because the eyes are the true pathway to the heart. Your brain will lie to you, but your heart won't lie to you. And those are indigenous values. Go right ahead. Who's next? I'm going to stop preaching right now.
Oh, sorry. When you said, you know, that they were welcomed as part of the human family, that's also an issue that we addressed in the rewrite of this project, where we said, you know, when our Behike encountered you, we welcomed you. right? As we had others, because everybody thinks the only one that got to the island was Christopher Columbus, but that's a big lie. We had been trading with other people from different parts of the world for,
Yes, yes, yes.
you know, time immemorial, let's say. And that's one of the things that we made sure was put in there, is so that the young people could see the difference in perspectives and approach. They came with intending to steal, rape, rob, and, you know, do all of this. And we welcomed them, as we did all people,
Mhm,
as part of that human family. Oh, they're probably here to trade. Yeah, welcome. You know, let's,
mhm.
you know. So I love that you said that, because it just allowed me to say that that was something that we did address in rewriting this.
You know what? They never mentioned in the history books that the first people that came from Africa were Phoenicians, and Phoenicians had already established international trade on the high seas. So when they came here, they were accepted. They didn't come here to do anything to anybody, marginalize or take it from us. They were just, they had heard about these people on the other side of that big body of water, and they wanted to see who they were. And a lot of the tribes, especially from the northeastern part of the United States, got involved in international trade with them and actually got on their big, huge boats and traveled with them. So we've been talking to each other from all points of the world, long before the white man even had a thought of getting in a boat and sailing anywhere. So, and another thing too, when they came over here, nobody came over here that was aristocratic from Europe. They were all running away from the pressure that the crown heads of Europe put on them. So they came here as victims from Europe. And as soon as they got here, they noticed these beautiful people running around, no clothes on, nobody fighting or arguing. And what did they do? They victimized us. We became the victims, and they became the conquerors. All right, my history lesson is over.
Well, so let me just say, I think we've got about 8 minutes left. But what I want to share is that, I mean, I think obviously what you're all involved in and what you're doing is crucial to rebuilding the foundation that we all live on top of. And this re-education of and decolonization of our minds, our processes, the things that we are all accustomed to is crucial. And so I applaud you for your efforts and what you're working on, and the fact that you are making this a global thing. And I want to just I want to also state that, you know, this whole thing, the things that you're trying to teach people, that you're trying to re-educate us on, it's not an on-off switch. Unfortunately, we can't flip the switch and then immediately everybody's minds are going to be changed and everybody's processes are going to be changed. So I think the important thing is to remember that everybody, this is a stepping process. So everybody is at a different point on those steps, is at a different level. Some people are completely at the bottom and totally colonized, totally absorbed, totally just there, and, you know, near impossible to change those thought processes. But other people are a few steps up, and then other people are gradually moving up. So I think the important thing is continue doing what you're doing and educating people and letting people understand the true values and the true processes behind your work to change people's minds and processes, and the structure and the history, all of those things. But just make sure that you are holding hands with humanity and with those people who are maybe at the bottom step. So some people are going to be higher, some people are going to be in the middle, but just don't let go of the people that are behind you. Pull somebody up with you and educate everybody a little bit at a time, because this is, you know, not an on-off switch, and it'll take some work. But I applaud you for everything you're doing, and I think it's great. Education, re-education especially, and correction of history is crucial.
Absolutely,
Yes,
me
Jay.
too. But you know what? They don't talk about the Egyptians and the Moroccans and those people that came here, even before Christopher was a thought. Um, And there's an article that you can read in the Daily Mail, dailymail.com, October the 15th, 2019, by Keith Griffith. You know, think about it. You know, I had a very good friend, Dr. Jack D. Forbes, and he was a Native man that was the professor emeritus at University of California, Davis, and he was the one that wrote the first proposal for the first Native university in the United States, DQ University. He was a close friend of mine. This man also taught in Oxford. He wrote a book called The American Discovery of Europe, and he proved that it was our people that canoed across the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean and discovered Europe long before Europe even knew they were Europeans. So, you know, that's another one. I mean, it's just so much history out there, but they keep it hidden. The American Discovery of Europe. One of my closest friends, Dr. Jack D. Forbes. So we got about 4 minutes left, and I want to ask each of you, starting with Verona Iriarte, my good friend. Verona, your closing thoughts. You got a minute. I can't hear you. Unmute.
Now, no, I'm unmuted now. I just want to thank you for having us on the show. I'm enjoying doing the work that we're doing. We're actually we really work well together. And for those people who want to see this, at some point it's going to be published in the book so that everybody can have access to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And before I go to Tanya, there's something that I need to bring to your attention. Musa came over here on the current, Canary Current. Did you know that you could put a vessel off the west coast of Africa in the water, and if you let the vessel travel on its own, it would go south and come back around up on the shores of South America and here to the United States. And guess what? You could do it going back. Put your vessel in the water. It'll take you north and then bring you back down to where you started from. The natural flow of the currents. And those were some of the greatest navigators in the world. Okay, so I'm finished preaching. Tanya, it's your turn, your closing thoughts.
As an avid sailor and a person that's lived on boats for many years, that's been disproven. And the updated version of that has come to find that there hasn't been any bones found from Africa in this country.
Mm-hmm.
There hasn't been any vegetation or names of anything from this country in Africa or Europe. No language, no nothing. And Pangea wasn't all of Africa, and we all were all different parts of Pangea. And when the Great Floods hit and everything just kind of started to move apart, then that's when things started to move apart. And I think that we must be careful that narratives that are based in things that can be disproven are fueling further division amongst our people and indigenous communities that are not based in collective liberation.
Okay.
And offer different levels of oppression.
Okay, now I'm going to disagree with you, and that's my right. My question is, how did the rubber tree get in South America from Africa? And the other question that I have is, did the Aztecs make rubber balls to play with? And if they did, where did the rubber tree come from? You know, so that's just something to think about. I'm not mad at you, Tanya. I love you. Okay. But now, Nikki, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting us here. And also just say that I think this program, as well as what we're doing, the working group on the Zen project, is showing that this technology that we're, that's supposed to be just for play and stuff, is actually dissolving the borders. So we can now meet across borders, these artificial borders that these people did, and do good work and do decolonization work. And so, I'm just grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity you folks offered us in being able to share the work that we're doing and the work we're going to continue doing and the work that we need to continue to do as Indigenous peoples with ourselves, ¿verdad? Self-decolonization, acknowledgement when we overstep and we fall into that, because all of us do. I know I do, and I'm working on it, but I'm a work in progress, just like the work we're working with the Zen project is a work in process. So I'm just very grateful. Thank you. And thank for these beautiful women that I've had the opportunity to work with. It's been amazing how well we work together, as Verona said, and how we check our ego at the door, because this ain't about us, it's about our people, and making sure that our voices are heard again. We're reclaiming our own stories, and that's how it should be. And we need to continue to do that, to set the story straight, and it has to be in our voices. Thank you.
Well, Abuela, Nikki, I'm so honored to have had an opportunity to bring all of you in on this show. And the one thing that we all need to do is keep an open mind, because there's so much out there that we don't know. But in your walk into discovery, you're going to find so much out there that's been there since the beginning of time. And if we close that door, we'll never know the truth. So I want to thank all of you, and I'm proud of you for working on this Zen project. And thank you, Sandra, for being who you are and what you do. And I hope to talk to all of you again. I had a stroke 3 weeks ago, but the Creator has brought me back. And I love all of you. And I mean that, all of you. So we'll talk again soon. And in the words of my Cherokee people, Danada, Goai, Wado. Talk to you soon.